debatable. Third time's the charm. I think we have audio across the board this time. I apologize if you saw those 2 quick videos. We're going to try to remove them from YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and everywhere else we're streaming to, but just had some audio issues, and then I clicked the wrong button, so you couldn't hear us. Had an update on the software, so it should be good to go now. We should be live, and you should be able to hear everything. We're picking up with a continuation from last week. We have Morpheus on. We're going to go ahead and speed through this since we are a few minutes behind due to the technical issues, but last week we were talking about aliens, and we're going to continue talking about aliens this week, specifically a spin on panspermia, which is the idea that there's life propagated throughout the entire known universe. So if either of you guys want to take off and kind of go into that a little further, I'm just going to check audio everywhere, and we should be good to go.
Sure, I'll just do like a little quick summary from last week. So we were talking about the aliens and the possibility of them visiting Earth, and then also how the aliens could have jump-started life here. So like things are intelligently designed by aliens as opposed to a god. That describe that position correctly, Morpheus?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
well, we're good on audio. I did a quick test on everywhere we're streaming to, so just wanted to get that out of the way now.
perfect. All right. Cool. So when I look at the Earth and life here, I don't see any sort of indication of intelligent design. Could you tell me what you're seeing to make you think that aliens is a possibility?
Yeah, well, there's kind of 2 ways to think about this. So I'll just briefly summarize both of them, and then I'll see where you want to go with that.
Okay.
Okay. So one way to look at this is similar to a conversation we've already had. So if you're a listener, you've probably heard this. There was an argument that was put forth at a lecture series by Brian Greene, Richard Dawkins, and then that was picked up by other intellectuals. And the argument was that there's a higher probability that we're in a engineered simulation versus an organic, natural occurring instance of intelligence. And the argument for that was that once intelligence emerges, intelligence creates more intelligence. And
so I'm not sure if I froze. Hey, Morpheus, I'm not sure if I froze or maybe you did, but the last 10 seconds I was kind of missing.
You froze.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, which part did you last hear?
You were talking about Brian Greene, and you were saying,
okay. Yeah, there was a lecture kind of discussion series, and you have you have 2 intellectuals saying that the probability of us living in an engineered or simulated reality is higher than living in an organic and naturally occurring intelligence. So that's one. I told you there's 2 ways to think about this, right? So that's one avenue you can go down. The second one is just simply observing the world, observing our reality, right? In our reality, we make an assumption, or we withhold judgment. We say there are 2 types of things that occur in reality: naturally occurring things and intelligently designed things. Those are the 2 types of things that exist: things that naturally occur and things that are intelligently designed. The assumption or the judgment that we withhold is that the naturally occurring thing was not created by an intelligence, because there's no, maybe there's not good enough evidence, or we don't have. Some would argue there's not enough proof and things like that. But we do know that there's intelligently designed things, and then that there are what we perceive to be naturally occurring things. And most of us that have departed from the theistic worldview are left with a mechanistic kind of scientific causal chain for the naturalistic things that arise, and then the intelligently designed things are things designed by intelligence. But we do know that there's those two things do exist. So it's not like they don't exist. And so those are the two avenues of approach that I would take. And for a little bit of background, I did not think about this for a long time, because once I left the religious theistic worldview, I didn't really think of a creator, because I had boxed that in the context of an omnipotent God. But after hearing other intellectuals and physicists and scientists talk about it, it's opened my kind of aperture for that, and the possibility of just discussing it. So I'll pause there.
Okay.
You can pick which one you want to go down.
Well, first, I guess when we talk about the design thing versus non-design things, or to use like your language, you said naturally occurring versus what was it? Or was it just naturally occurring versus design thing?
Yeah, like organically,
designed.
naturally, and then engineered or created, like simulated.
Gotcha. So how do you go about telling the difference between something designed and something that occurred naturally? Like, what's your method?
Well, that's the challenge that I don't. I think that's the problem to solve, because because I will say, like, if you want to, if your criteria is like complicated systems, well, the natural world's filled with complicated systems.
Yes, that's what a lot of
as
Christians tend to use, right? We had an apologist on our channel, and he appealed to complexity. And he says complicated things were indicative of design, but like that. So you're not saying that.
Well, no, I'm saying that the criteria become difficult, right? Because, like, the complexity of an iPhone or the complexity of a motor vehicle is not even nearly as complex as, the human genome of mapping out the human genome and understanding all of the various complexities. So complexity is not, I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying that if you're going to use complexity, it's not the best argument, because the most naturally occurring things, human beings, are more complex than our most intelligently designed things.
Okay, so
you look at the components of a vehicle, for instance, that's still a complex machine that operates. Just like the heart pumps blood, and you have electrical impulses that run the different systems of the body. It's a very complex thing. It's so complex that we still don't understand a lot of it. Not even to mention how it emerged, but just how it functions in general. And so, whereas if you look at like a Corvette or a high performance vehicle with all the different mechanisms in the engine, again, it's complex. There's a lot of people that don't know how all those things function, but someone collectively knows how all those things function, like 100%. So I would never come out and say we were 100% designed, but it's a fascinating thought experiment, because it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. I would say the one thing I can say without a doubt is I don't know, and that it seems to be a mystery to me that let me make one let me make one caveat here. No, because that's even complex too. It's hard, I don't know.
So I mean, why? Okay, so why look at the human body and think it's design thing, or any sort of life?
Because it's a complex system.
But I mean, I thought you were just saying that you weren't appealing to complexity, or at least you acknowledge that it's a bad argument.
No, it's not that. What I meant to say there is that it's difficult because it's a difficult difficult counter argument, because we're more complex than the most intelligently designed things that exist currently. So, like, this naturally occurring system called the human being, the human body, is more complex to the point where we don't even understand it fully. I mean, there's still lots of things we have to learn.
Sure.
From neuroscience to the way genes are encoded over time and all
Sure.
that
It's
stuff.
very complicated and there's a lot we don't understand.
But the point
What about
is
that would indicate design?
well, when you look at the world today,
Mhm.
when you look at the objects in the world, something that is designed is something that's complex. It's a system
No.
that is self.
No. So I could tell you tons of
So if you look at a
I can tell you
vehicle,
tons of design things that are very simple. Like you ever been
sure,
you've
there's
been
simpleness.
hunting, like the stake that holds down the tent? Like it's just a rod, it's a piece of steel, a piece of metal, just a chunk, right? Or like a pole that holds up a stop sign. Very simple. Like it's just
Sure.
a pole.
So you could add a category to our lexicon, if you will, or our list of criteria. You could add one as utility through an anthropomorphic lens. Sure. In other words, you would have to define the thing by its utility to the anthropomorphic.
You said utility.
So-
You're saying if it has a clear use, then it would be designed.
I'm just saying that's a possibility of a category, right?
But
Like-
but you have naturally occurring things that definitely have a use, like my heart, right? I'm using it to live, right? I'm using my brain, naturally occurring.
Yeah,
Right.
but you didn't design it.
Well, sure, but I mean, but
That's the
but
difference.
like it seems like so it kind of seems like we're talking past each other a little bit here. So, can you give us an example of something that you would think is a high probability of design and why? Because it seems that when you appeal to it, you say like, "Oh, I'm not trying to appeal to simply complexity," but then it seems like you go to complex things like the human body to say that, and my
Well, no,
question is like you're
I
like
said
we're
complexity
not
is a
going to
bad
appeal strictly
counter-argument
to
to my
complexity.
argument.
That's fine, but I'm kind of curious like what the criteria are of something that you might deem as an intelligently designed that didn't come from the mind of a human, right? So like for instance, like you could talk about something as simple as a spear being a stick with a pointy end on it. That's still a intelligently designed object, right? Or you could talk about something as complex as, a car or whatever, and that's insanely more complicated and complex than a spear, right? But both of those are obvious human design by intelligent design, right? And by humans, which are the intelligent designers of those things, right?
You said
But-
obvious.
yes,
So that means you must have an obvious explanation for what's designed and what's
do.
not.
yeah, there's a
I
method.
really do.
Yeah,
My thing for design typically means that someone designed it, and we have evidence of design by pointing to previous versions and or purpose and or utility assigned by its designer, right?
There's previous versions of humans.
Sure,
So
in the sense
an
that like
example that wouldn't work. in that-
Well, let me clarify just real quick to point out why that doesn't work. Is because if you're a proponent of evolution, which is the natural change of living organisms over time, then there's never been a case of, like, with exception of potential, like, CRISPR technology and gene manipulation, which is a whole different animal. But I wouldn't say that, like, cookie cutter children in the future, if that's a real thing, with CRISPR technology,
I
could
think that's a
technically
real
be
thing, for
a
sure.
proponent of intelligent design, right? But
I think we'll design
naturally
our children in the
occurring
future.
organisms don't have any precursor as far as a, like, utility and or previous design, right? Like, they develop naturally to adapt to their environment, hence the term evolution. Versus, like, a stick can technically be pointed, right? Like, you could have a pointed stick that occurs naturally, but if you're not using it for the utility of a spear, or no one's using it to poke things with, it's still just a stick, right? It's not all that, like, you wouldn't say it's intelligently designed. It's just a pointed stick that occurred in nature. When someone's utilizing that in the method to hunt or to, hold stuff over a fire or if you're using a car for like its utility, if you will.
Animals do that for sure.
Animals cook over fires and design cars.
Animals use tools. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't say that. I said they cook over fire and use cars.
You said use a stick to hunt, and there's plenty of animals that use tools to
break open shells, not to actively hunt.
What was that?
To like break
animals
open shells.
Yeah, break open shells. Yeah, we're animals too, by the way. So don't separate us from like other animals, because we are animals.
Okay, but generically, like if we're gonna be that pedantic about it, humans.
It's not pedantic. I really think we should think of ourselves as animals, because we are. And human beings for a long time, especially in the religious community, have tried to pretend that we're different than animals. And
but let's pretend like this conversation still has something to do with intelligent design, and let's go back to my original question.
So can we?
We're animals.
Can I give you my method for determining design things from non-design things?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Like, is be compare and contrast, right? So it takes a lot of prior knowledge to use this method, and fortunately, humans have plenty of that. So we look at an object, like for instance, I was going to use a bullet that might lag the video. All right, so we have a pen here, right? So I know the pen is designed because I compare it to things that I know that I already know are designed. Like for instance, other pens, other things like this that I know don't occur naturally. They're designed. So when I see this, I instantly recognize it as being designed. If I go outside and I see a pine cone, I know what pine cones are. I know the history of them. I know pine cones are naturally occurring. So that's how
I can give you a great example of where that proposition really fails pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. So I'll pose this question to you. This is a thought experiment.
Yep.
At what point does a naturally occurring thing depart from its natural occurrence to a new engineered occurrence of itself? So
you mean like somebody finds a stick and sharpen it into
think of GMOs, think of domesticated cattle that are completely different than they were 5,000 years ago. An intelligent being went in there, messed with the genetics, whether it was actually through genetics, like so with genetically modified organisms, for instance, or with that's a more complicated version. But then you also have. So no, that's a serious point. I mean, we can't just ignore that. If
I wasn't going to ignore it. I was going to try to answer it. So I mean that's really complicated when we're talking about the genome. I don't know a whole lot about that, but like it seems to fit what I had said previously, like a stick being sharpened into a spear, right? So people taking something naturally occurring, making some changes to it, and then there's something designed. Right.
So that's 100%.
Okay. So literally every design thing fits into that category. We don't. Yeah, they do. We don't. So hold on. The things that we design are made from things that are naturally occurring. Like we can't speak things into existence.
Hold up, real quick.
Okay.
We can at least differentiate between something that was modified by an intelligent species and something that wasn't. We can do that.
We
do
that by everything that's designed, though.
What was that?
To go to his point, that would literally be everything that's designed, or everything that's natural. Like everything is designed by something that occurs naturally. That ink pen wasn't just
naturally that aren't designed. Or I'm sorry, let me.
That's not what
certain things. What's up?
I think you said it backwards. I said everything that is designed comes from things that occurred naturally. Like, for instance, the pen he held up is probably made of plastics, maybe correct. Metals, inks, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Those are all things that we acquired resources from the earth that we live on, and we put them together in a particular fashion to form that pen, right? But all the things that are in the pen occur on Earth naturally. They just don't occur in that particular layout, setup, format, whatever you want to call it.
But that is 100% correct. But that is the mystery. That is the mystery of human beings. Like, because all of the elements that exist within our body, like the iron that was created in a supernova that exploded billions of years ago that ended up on Earth, because all of the elements on the periodic table come from from my knowledge at least, from stars that explode in the galaxy. But then those things come together and they create. I mean, there's on one hand you say they create, the elements that exist on the Earth, but then to put those together in a way that creates a human being, or to put those together in a way that creates a Tesla, or that creates a microchip for a computer, or artificial intelligence, whatever.
You compare and you contrast. So that's what I'm saying. So like if I go outside and I see a Tesla,
cars don't naturally occur.
No, but here's the thing. So like if I go outside and I see a car, right, I'll know that it's designed because by comparing it and contrasting it with things that are not designed. But if we were to go on some island and then we find out some tree that was popping out Teslas, okay, so now you have an argument for the Tesla being naturally occurring.
What about popping out oranges?
Okay, so now you have an argument for the orange being naturally occurring. But so like I'm not giving you absolute certainty. Like I'm giving you an epistemology. I'm giving you a way that you can, with pretty good level of certainty, determine whether or not something is designed.
Let's take it and kind of like put it in a really interesting experiment. Let's say that you have this item, right, and you've only seen one of it. I'm not even going to name what that item is. I just want it to be any generic thing, right? You have this one thing, and you want to find out whether it occurs naturally, or you want to find out whether it occurs or it's designed, right? So what you do, you have one of them, you've never seen it before, is you leave your house, it's in your house, and you have it, and it's in front of you. You leave your house, and you go and you research. Okay, and if you end up finding it a lot in like office buildings, or if you end up finding it in other people's homes or whatnot, but you never see it in caves or underwater or floating in the sky or coming off of trees or coming out of plants, you never find it anywhere else other than like in people's domiciles or their work habitats, right? Wouldn't you say it's more likely that it's something designed because we manipulated something natural into that design? Rather than if you leave and out the front door, there's a whole yard full of it because it was a leaf of grass, and you find it literally everywhere on the planet because grasses are so populous, then you might say like, oh, it's naturally occurring. The earth itself is producing it. Humans can impact it. Not saying they can't. Like, obviously we can plant trees, plant grass, we can water and fertilize it. But on its own accord, if humans weren't here, it would still be doing its own thing. That would be naturally occurring. Grass. Iron on Earth. Naturally occurring, right? Because no one had to design it. But if you took like an iron ore and you fashioned it into part of an ink pen, right? Now that would be design, and you'd see it in other designs of ink pens. But the iron ore itself is obviously the naturally occurring element. So, like, that's the compare and contrast that I think AAA is kind of getting at. It's just, like, if you had this, an example of this object, and you went and looked for examples of this object, if you came across them occurring in nature, be it, something like guano, which is the poop of a bat, or a pear, which is the fruit of a tree, or, salt, which is, a mineral found primarily in water and around water's aqueous surfaces. Stuff like that, then you might give a good example of, like, these are naturally occurring, versus if you don't find any other examples occurring kind of out in the wild, if you will, you might have good reason to believe it's designed.
Yeah, the question is when you put those things together to create complex things like life. You know what I mean?
Okay, but like, for instance, like, do you know how life is formed? Like, on a very basic level, like at a cellular level?
I don't think science knows how life began. No.
I didn't ask that. I asked how it was formed.
Oh. Formed and began?
Yeah, I'm not asking about, like, abiogenesis. I'm talking about, like, what are the proponents of life in a cell right now? Like, what makes up a cell? What makes a cell alive? Like, at a most basic level.
Okay. So you want me to give you all the components of a cell, like a mitochondria, a cell wall?
No. I'm asking what
nucleus,
makes a cell
DNA.
From a living cell. What makes a living cell different than a non-living cell? You could use
Well,
one
cells
word
are
and answer
living.
this
There is
question.
no non-living cells.
Sure, there are. They're dead cells.
No,
They happen
but
all the
cells
time.
are living organisms.
No, they're not.
But
Dead
can
cells happen
die.
all the
No,
time.
I mean, some cells can die.
Cells can die, but we're not talking about. It's just like a human can die, but humans living things doesn't mean they're not.
Okay, so
alive.
cells can also die,
cells. So
and
if you go
therefore
look at-
they're not living.
Go, hold
Yeah,
up, real
but,
quick.
hey,
Hold up
let's
real
not get stuck on the
Hold
same
up real
single
quick.
point. Okay.
Go. You can look at the periodic table of elements. There's elements. They have all the components of elements. That's far from a cell. Okay, cells.
No
way
one
more
said it
complicated
wasn't.
than that.
I stated something clearly. My fact remains: cells live, cells can die. What makes the
no one
difference
said they
between a
couldn't die. I
living
said
cell and a
asked
dead
me
cell?
To tell me what a living cell is, I was like, okay, a living cell is a living thing.
Okay, but like by
You want me to tell you
defining
what
a
a dead
living
cell
thing as a
is?
living thing, you've defeated the purpose of a definition. I'm asking you, do you know anything about cellular structure? I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm trying to ask you, do you know how
I know
living
it's a
things
living-
work?
Yeah,
So
it's a
you should
living
know there's
component
one
of-
word that you could use to answer this question. The answer is proteins.
Of course, there's proteins. That's it.
So then fucking answer the question, dude. That was it. You didn't have to go into this thing about living cells and dead cells and the
I asked
you know,
what do you want me to give you? All the
and
components
I
of a
made it
cell,
as
and then
clear
read
as
them out.
possible.
All right. So
Mitochondria,
the answer is
cell wall,
proteins.
cytoplasm.
The answer is
that's
proteins. Since you don't want to answer it, the answer is proteins. So the answer is proteins. Now
There's
with that
lots
out
of
of the
things
way,
other than proteins and cells, by the way.
no one said they're not. That's how we differentiate what makes a cell alive versus not. We look at its
And the
protein
proteins that
structure.
are in where the nucleus, where the
We
RNA.
look
and
at the
DNA is.
protein structure based off of its amino acid composition and side chain pairing of nucleotides. I don't know
there you go.
how much more complex you want me to get, but I can do it. So
Well,
shut
I
up and
told you
listen.
from the beginning. I said nucleus. Do you know what's in the nucleus?
I'm well aware what the nucleus is. Nucleus is a large part of the cell.
There you go.
Well, not only proteins, but yes. Sure.
But the point was, I understood you from the very beginning.
So then just answer the question next time. Say the word proteins,
did.
because
I
that's
said
how you
nucleus.
differentiate.
You said no.
okay, guys.
You literally didn't.
Enough with the medical discussion. So we're
It
talking
wouldn't even
about,
matter because the point is that a cell is a complex organism.
But you
and
said
there's things in the
complexity is
world that
not
are
your
complex
point of
organisms.
proof. You
What's proof
stated
it's a
at the
complex
beginning that
organism?
complexity is not your point of proof. But
No,
you keep going to complexity.
You guys misquoted me 3 times on this. I said it's a bad counter argument to my argument.
But it is your only argument because it's the only one you've
No.
presented.
Hold on. So like, okay,
I guess you guys didn't catch that the
maybe-
3 times I said it prior.
okay, you didn't say that complexity wasn't a bad argument.
I said it was a bad counter argument.
To what?
In other words, I this is what I stated. I said that it's a bad counter argument because there's more complex things that are designed versus things that are not designed.
Okay, so all right, so is complexity a bad argument for intelligent design, or are you saying it's a bad counter argument to something else?
So I'm saying that if you say complexity is a good proof of design, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad argument for that because there are naturally occurring organisms that are more complex than things that were naturally designed or that were designed by intelligence. Sorry.
Okay, but
And
we keep going to complexity to point out things as like designed here. So my question is, what are you appealing to if it is not complexity? Because every time I bring up something,
there's a whole list of things you can appeal to.
Okay, so give me an example of one thing you personally are appealing to as an example of something that could potentially be designed other than complexity.
I said utility before.
Okay, so
but utility, we're gonna discuss how utility is really a bad way to go about that, right? Because like just about every organ in my body has utility for me, right?
But it's not designed. Language is designed.
Exactly.
That's
so,
the point.
So utility can't be indicative of design.
So utility can be indicative of design because we have all kinds of intelligently designed things that are have utility.
but
Okay, but
there's
Morpheus, you have design and undesigned things that have utility, right?
Correct. Yes.
So
utility
we're trying
can
to
apply
figure
to
out a
both
way
scenarios,
to
but
pick.
it can't be indicative to one over the other.
Right, we're trying to figure out a method to determine something that might be strictly designed versus things that are strictly natural.
I understand where you guys are coming from, and I understand the
So
frustration.
using utility
I'm right there with
or
you.
complexity
But the point I'm
won't
making
lead
is
you to
sometimes
one.
but the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes you need multiple different criteria to understand a specific outcome. And so, like I said, one thing I look at is complexity. Okay. One thing I look at is utility. Okay. There's probably multiple things that overlap that you can look at to say, hey,
Okay,
but Morpheus, so even the two criteria that you gave to, it could apply to my brain, right? My brain and a quantum computer, they both have utility and they're complex.
which is why I think that it's possible your brain's created or engineered, or it's part of a simulation.
Do you think
you
atoms
just missed
are
it.
created?
Um,
Because think about the way that an electron
I don't know if
orbits. I put that in quotes for a reason. Orbits.
Well, hold on. Yeah, I don't know if I would go as deep as particle physics, because it's
that's extremely complex.
It is. I agree with you, but I think the point that
it's also extreme utility. Like everything is composed of particles.
Yeah. So maybe it is. Maybe we are in a simulation, like the physicists and scientists say.
No. We can't buddy.
Here's the problem, man. Like we're trying to come up with a way to distinguish these things, right? Like if I asked you, like, we're looking for two different two different things, right? Not necessarily obvious things, but like motorcycles versus bicycles. You'd be like, how do we distinguish a motorcycle from a bicycle? And you're like, well, they both have two tires. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a great way to distinguish them, right? Because they both have these attributes. Just like having complexity or means that like something natural or something designed both have those attributes. So it's not a great way to distinguish them. We're trying to find a method to get to just one of these two objects, a motorcycle or a bicycle, right?
Right. The difference between a motorcycle and a bicycle is one has a motor.
Right, exactly.
You could use that.
You could use that every time, and you'd only come to the conclusion of either a motorcycle or a bicycle. But if you keep pointing out things like complexity, which points to both intelligently designed things and naturally occurring things, or utility, which applies to both as well, it's kind of like applying to two tires or handlebars to a motorcycle or a bicycle question. Or, brakes. That kind of thing. Places for your feet, a seat. Like, these things that all apply to both of them. What AAA and I are trying to get at is what method could you effectively and use to get to a undoubted distinguishability between these two things. Because if you say complexity, we already discussed that. We know it goes to both. And if you say utility, we know that applies to both. So we're trying to get to somewhere where you say this is undoubted design.
You say utility doesn't apply to both?
The utility piece, utility would have to be in reference to a human being, right?
No, not necessarily.
It's not just a human being. Like even like the way the electron orbits the nucleus.
When I say utility, I mean from an anthropomorphic perspective, not from anything else.
But
it's not ubiquitous. But
even when you put the composition of the atom, it has utility.
Let me, for people that may be really confused about why I would say these things, let me help them understand this. Both of you, would have to provide the same answer for something not being designed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're that earlier.
I can do that. That's okay, what I was saying.
Let's hear it.
You compare and you contrast. So
give me the thing that you guys think that is the best way to distinguish something that's intelligently designed and something that's not.
For instance, like what Facade said at the beginning, not the beginning, but like a few minutes ago, right? Like you start out by investigating, you find a thing, and then you try to figure out, you try to find other things that are like it, and you say, how did these things come about? Right? If you find them growing out in the forest, you can say it's naturally occurring. If you find a factory that makes those things, you can then say it was designed.
Why if a forest creates a thing, why is that naturally occurring?
Because it's
if
on
it's
the
grown out the
earth
ground, that's
occurring
how
without
that's what I would call
impact
naturally.
of like
So your definition of naturally occurring is just something that exists, something that
undesigned in
exists.
human nature. Well,
Yeah,
undesigned in all of nature, not just human nature. Like for instance,
Because
like stars are naturally occurring.
yeah, stars, black holes, like something that does not require intelligence for its existence. Something where, and some sort of no intentionality, put something together and then formed it. Right? We're talking about something that just is just laws of physics or biology and chemistry are just
So
at
a huge
work, and
so
it's made.
so we share a lot of our DNA with obviously other organisms,
Yeah.
chimpanzees, mushrooms. Surprisingly, I think pretty much all life on Earth is we share a relationship with them, and so. And I'm talking about like the rudimentary kind of fundamental genes that make up human beings.
Sure, you're
And
talking
so
phylogeny.
I draw, what was that?
You're talking phylogeny.
I don't know what the word for it is, but I just know that we share genes across, there's, everyone knows they've seen in biology, the tree of life or whatever.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
but,
we share
let me,
genes with everything that's alive.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Bacteria, whatever.
It's called
I think
phylogenics.
so I think for me, I'm not necessarily making a statement, but I'm making an observation, which is that for me personally, I draw a distinction between living things and then elements, which elements are the things that make up living things. And then underneath elements, you have the physics that undergirds the elements, like atomic mass of hydrogen, for
I
instance.
thought we were talking about design things. So
Well,
why would you draw a line between living things?
Let me
non-living?
get to my point. Let me get to my point real quick. So because I'm like on the fence, and depending on the day, I depending on how deep I want to go, I'll stop at just naturally occurring elements. So in other words, the physics and the natural occurring elements that undergirds the physics, that this is like one perspective that's naturally occurring, and then life as a complex organism or system, that to me seems either engineered or assisted in some way. And I would make a huge distinction between, say, like the element of sodium or copper or whatever, iron, and the actual construction of a complex system like life and DNA.
But Morpheus. So, like, circumstances could change where if I were to bring sodium to you, it's no longer reasonable to assume that it was naturally occurring. Like, let's say we mastered nuclear fusion, where we could just make elements. We could take stuff and put chemicals together and make gold.
And that's the second, but that was my first thing. I said either if I wanted to go deep, I would go there, but I was giving you another answer. Yeah, 100%. There could be.
That's what you need. So that's what I'm saying. So you compare.
Same with the universes.
You have to investigate. But what I'm saying, because it seems like Nat, you're making assumptions based on properties such as utility, such as complexity, and then such as whether it's alive. I'm not sure why that's.
It's because I don't think you can rule it out. I think you can say I don't know, and it's interesting, and we can look at it. But to say that no, 100%, it's just naturally occurring, I think that's a false way to look at the world. I think it's an illogical way to look at the world.
I'm not saying 100%. Like if I go outside and I see a tree, right? Like I'm not gonna say I know for certain that some advanced civilization didn't just morph the tree into existence, right? But like we're talking about like what's plausible. We know how trees occur; they occur naturally. So there's no reason.
I don't think that we know as well as I don't know. I think that we know how evolution works, and we know how DNA and genes work. I don't think we know how those things came into existence.
Sure, but Morpheus. So if we're talking about a tree, like I identify something as a tree, and then I point out how every tree that we have ever seen occurred naturally. It came from a seed that was put into the ground and then it sprouted, right? Don't you think it's reasonable to say that this other tree, whose origin you don't know, is naturally occurring because it falls in the category of a bunch of other things that we know?
I don't know how living organisms came into being.
Sure. Okay.
So I don't know if it was designed or not.
But we're talking about what's reasonable here, right? So, like, we have not figured
why
out.
is it reasonable? So first of all, it's not even reasonable to assume that we're living in an organic and real environment. It's more reasonable, according to, again, this argument. Actually, the first thing I brought up, it's more reasonable to think that we're in a simulation because organic environments would be very rare, and simulated environments would not be rare; they'd be less rare.
So, okay, but
so it's not reasonable. I don't understand why you say that.
Hang on, though. Even if it's completely reasonable to say that we're living in a simulation, the simulation must be advanced enough for us to determine that in our shared reality, we have these elements and/or things available to us. So for all intents and purposes, our reality still consists of these things. It doesn't matter whether they're simulated or not.
Well, we don't know if they're simulated or not. That's the problem.
It doesn't matter.
But
it doesn't
logically
change
speaking,
anything.
It does, because logically
In what way?
It just follow the logic. Simulations
But
would be more...
that doesn't change anything.
Also,
How would it change? How would it change?
No,
how would it change anything if we lived in a simulation?
Using your brain and your logic to understand that a naturally occurring and organic intelligence is less, is not as common or is more rare.
I'm not asking whether it's common, buddy. I'm asking what difference would it make, right? Because in the simulation, the rules are still following the rules.
The difference is that you can't rule out something being created by an intelligent thing.
We're not completely ruling it out. We're just saying these things follow rules.
So that's all. I'm not completely ruling it out.
But we're talking about what's logically follows.
It could 100% be completely organically originated, of course.
Buddy, we're getting really close to the idea of like nihilism here, man.
So let me try. So all right. So what Fasad is saying, let's say we're in the simulation, right? We're in a simulation. The simulation still follows rules, whereas in the simulation, some things occur naturally and some things are designed.
In a simulation, everything would be designed. Everything's simulated in a simulation.
All right. Okay. So, but
they would still follow on natural. I think what you're saying.
In the simulation, let's say hypothetically we're in a simulation, right? And I get shot in the face. Do I die? No, because I'm a simulation. But guess what? The rules of logic and the rules of physics apply to us in the reality in which we occupy. So it doesn't matter if it's if it's a simulation or not, if it's following rules. If it follows the rule that if I plant a seed in the ground, a plant will grow from it, then it doesn't matter whether the ground is simulated and the seed is simulated and I'm simulated and the tree that grows from it is simulated. It doesn't matter because every time I plant a seed, as long as it has proper nutrition and water, it's going to sprout and grow into a tree. Because that's how seeds work.
People would care if we were in a simulation.
Yes, I'm not saying they wouldn't, but it wouldn't change the reality in which we live. Because it's still following the rules.
It's a different reality. It's a different
reality. It is literally the same reality because it is all there is.
Morpheus,
one's created and one's not.
Morpheus, it wouldn't change the stream.
One's created and one's not.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything.
Okay, all right. So hold on. So, let's say we're playing Grand Theft Auto, right? We're playing Grand Theft Auto 5 or whatever.
5, the newest one.
Grand Theft Auto 5, right? In the game, you're walking around. You see a vehicle, right? You see a nice brand new Corvette, If you play Grand Theft Auto, you know what a Corvette is. It's like a
Yep.
spinoff of a Corvette, right?
Yeah.
See a brand new Corvette, and then on the other side, you see an apple tree, right? So one, you would say, even in the simulation, this apple tree represents something that's naturally occurring. The Corvette does not. Now, what method would you use to distinguish the naturally occurring thing within the simulation and the intelligent design thing within the simulation?
But that's a question that, depending on the context, is because the thing is like there's probably at least 2 to 3 ways to think about that. I mean, if you're just talking about human-made things, then it's very easy to distinguish.
Not human-made things. I'm saying intelligently designed things, right?
Because both of them would be intelligently designed in that case.
Okay, all right. I mean, but
because they're both just a matter of just a matter of programming, or what do they call it?
Okay, but let's say hypothetically you're in the simulation. How would you go about determining that?
It's still there's still like procedurally generated algorithms behind that tree.
No one's saying there's not. We're asking you, how would you determine what is reality versus, or what is like occurring naturally?
I would do the same thing I'm doing right now, which is just questioning everything. And I would say that
sure, you can question, but what's the method? Because so far what I'm seeing, the method is compare and contrast is exactly is the best method, and that's what everybody do.
Well, like, so one thing
you don't appeal to complexity utility because people are going to get it wrong.
Well, yeah, those are just things I'm throwing out because that's all I have. But like a rock, for instance, or a big salt block, to me, there's a difference between that and like an actual cell and a system.
Okay, but no one's denying that there's difference with those things, but pointing to complexity as a way to distinguish it.
And the other one's a system of complex.
Again, no one's saying they're not different things or that one's not more complex than the other. No one has said that or even inferred that in this whole conversation. We're just asking if you're going to make a distinguishment between something that is designed and something that occurs naturally, what is the best method of doing it? Like the bicycle versus motorcycle example. What method could I use to determine one versus the other and only get the right answer? Because if you say something that applies to both of them, like they have a metal frame, we're never going to get anywhere.
I completely understand your point. You know what I mean? And that's the challenge here, is that it's complicated because to me, complex systems is about as good as you can get. Because you said utility. It's.
So let's say you're walking around and you find a large amount of plutonium, right? That's an element.
Yeah, I know.
Is that naturally occurring?
Plutonium?
Mm-hmm. Would you say that's naturally occurring or designed?
I would say it's naturally occurring.
Okay, so that answer is wrong, right? Because we know how plutonium is made. Right, it's made in nuclear reactors. Right, you can find trace amounts of it in places, but like if you find a large amount of plutonium, it was it was intelligently designed.
Yeah,
right. And we did that by researching it. So you investigate. You go. You can figure out where plutonium came from.
Well, yeah,
but in your instance, you said because plutonium is an element, it must be naturally occurring, and there you go. You got to the wrong answer.
Not must. I would.
Okay. Well, you would have said it's naturally occurring because it falls in under an element.
Yeah, if it's an element, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
But that's wrong.
But remember what I said earlier. I said depending on how deep I want to go, you can still make the argument that all the elements are intelligently designed as well. But you wouldn't use complexity in that case.
Go as deep as you. I want you to go as deep as you can to get the right answer, whatever level that's on.
Yeah.
So so whatever layer that is.
If I was going to go super deep, I would say that the complexity of the universe points towards a creator. That's what I would say.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
but it's just complexity, right? And we just talked about how complex things aren't indicative of design.
What about tell me, what about a star makes you think that it's intelligently designed?
Well, the complex system that exists for that star to come into fruition.
So Morpheus,
physics itself. I mean,
Morpheus, you know, I'm quite the physics nerd. I can tell you from start
just because
to
you
end,
can give me a process doesn't mean that the process wasn't designed.
We can watch the. You mean like the laws of physics design?
Yeah, I'm talking about about
like, you think like maybe like the weak and strong interactions, right?
Everything.
Electromagnetism, gravity was
everything.
designed.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just like
designed by what?
I sent you a famous mathematician that said that
what would it be designed by?
Can I explain? I mean, this isn't absurd or crazy in the least. I sent you a clip of a famous mathematician that said that when he peeled back all of the fundamental field equations and different equations that we use in physics and things like that, that there seems to be an underlying binary understructure to it. But the point I would say is, like, just because you can show a process or explain a process, we can explain the process of how vehicles work, and how computers work, and how all kinds of complex things.
Yeah, we can.
It doesn't mean it's not designed.
But so we can explain the process of how computers come into existence, but they require intelligence, right? It requires people in the factory putting stuff together. But we know how stars come into existence as well, and they don't require those things.
But does a human require things to be put into place?
Like a human, like to exist.
I'm saying that just being able to explain something from a natural perspective doesn't mean that there wasn't someone who created it.
But we can see it. We can see the formation of stars in various states.
That's kind of like saying, like, just because, like, we have a really good explanation of how I got Christmas presents when I was a child doesn't mean Santa isn't real.
So let me ask you this then. I'm curious to see if you guys would at least concede this. Is it possible that the natural order, the complexity of our universe, is it possible that it was created?
I don't know if that's possible, but if it's created, it would have to be created by a thing that also follows a natural order.
You wouldn't say it's 5% possible.
Like, I don't know that
it's conceivably possible given the.
Why not? We have all kinds of things that are created in the universe.
So the thing, the universe
we have evidence of all kinds of.
But Morpheus. So sure, but Morpheus, the universe is very different from things that are inside the universe, right? So because when we talk about the universe, we're talking about all of space and time. So
everything that requires for a computer to work.
No. Because
it's way more than that.
A computer isn't everything, right?
Yeah, but a computer requires all of the particle physics.
Okay, but that's a small,
let me finish the problem.
Part of the universe.
So
the computer needs
the universe.
General relativity, Newtonian physics.
Can I finish this? All right. So a computer isn't everything. The universe is. So you're going to need something that's outside of every. For Morpheus, I was trying to answer your question.
But does the computer require? You said it's not everything, and that's not true. It is everything.
A computer is not everything. I'm not a computer, Morpheus.
Neither are you. Neither am I.
A computer requires all of the things that the universe provides for it to exist.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
A computer does not need square.
Can a computer exist?
Morpheus.
Can a computer exist without the Big Bang? That's
computers do not need squirrels to exist.
Hey, you know what the computers don't need?
You said it.
99.999% of all living things that have ever existed on the planet.
You're completely misunderstanding me. The computer, in order for a computer to exist, physics had to come into being. The Big Bang had to happen.
No. The laws of physics. Okay, our current model does not say the laws of physics came into being. What it states is that under very high energy levels, the laws of physics kind of combine into one. For instance, like you get to a certain temperature, the weak interaction, electromagnetism combines into one. You go into even higher, strong interaction combines into one. And what we believe is that if you keep going,
Can you have a computer without the universe?
no, because
Without,
the
without our
Obviously
universe,
not.
so
can
if
you have
you
a computer?
no, if you
That's
okay,
all the only point I was trying to make.
So Morpheus. So when you say like universe, we're talking about everything, right?
Yes, the Big Bang,
Okay.
the foundations for everything to exist.
When you say universe, do you mean everything?
Or do you
Like,
mean
all
that
of
the
existence.
universe must exist for computers to exist because computers exist within our universe?
I mean that the foundations that create our reality, which is the Big Bang that created the universe we're in, that is a prerequisite for a computer because it
In-
exists as a
In
byproduct of our universe.
this particular universe, yes.
Yes, I'm not talking
Because-
about the multiverse. I'm talking about ours.
Because computers exist in this universe thanks to the humans that made them, which I guess is technically part of the 13.8, even though computers have existed for like 100 plus ish years. The 13.7999 billion years leading up to that, computers didn't exist.
We created computers and something created us. It's a natural causal
No.
chain.
It's a false analogy.
What a jump! What a jump!
It's a false analogy. It's like saying computers are made of
So
metal.
you guys
we must
have
also be made of metal. Like, no,
you-
this is
well-
this is. I want to explain why you could make a computer.
how does complexity
but-
come out of nothing?
So,
Complex
it
things
didn't
come out of
come-
complex
what do you mean?
things.
What do you mean it came out of nothing? What are you talking?
No, I'm saying a computer came from intelligent beings. We created it. Intelligent
Sure.
things.
That's not what you
come from
just said, and
intelligent
that's not the
things.
question that he addressed. Please stop jumping all over the place. This is not a trampoline. You just said, how can complexity come from nothing? He said complexity didn't come from nothing. You said computers are really complex and they have a designer. Okay, those are really, really different conversations. To say that computers had a designer is an undeniable fact that everyone on this podcast agrees to. To say that complexity came from nothing is a bold statement and an assertion that you just made due to probably, just guessing, your lack of understanding of physics in the early universe.
Well, I
And I'm
just
not
don't have the
saying
kind
that we have a
certainty you guys-
perfect
you guys have the
understanding of...
answers.
No.
It's
So,
the certainty that you
Mor-
guys have
Mor- Mor-
is
Morpheus,
pretty
this-
crazy. It's
Morpheus,
it's
this
as if
isn't
you,
about this isn't about
no,
certainty.
seriously. You guys have the certainty of a freaking priest.
Morpheus, like
It's
I'm not
crazy.
saying Morpheus. I'm not saying I'm certain.
And,
Okay,
and no,
so
we don't
Mor-
know where complex things come from. That's
Mor-
the whole point.
I
was
mean,
trying
we
to
know
make.
where some
there are
complex
tons
things
of
come
things
from.
that are complex. Morpheus, there are tons of things that are complex that we know come from. Like the thing you were just talking about, a computer. We know where
No, you know
computers
the
come
process. You don't know where they come from. That's a
from.
difference.
Computers?
What
No,
do you
you know
mean
exactly
we
what
don't
I'm
know where they
talking
come
about.
from?
What do you mean?
You
Where
guys
do
are
think computers
okay.
come
Now
from?
at this point, you're just purposely saying things that wouldn't make
No.
any sense.
No, you
No,
literally
of course
just
we
said
know
we don't know where
You don't
computers
think I
come
know where
from.
computers come from?
Morpheus, you just
Yes, we
said
know where
you don't
computers
know
come
where
from.
computers came from.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that. I said I said you're explaining the process. You're talking about a star. You're talking about plutonium. It doesn't mean you know where it came from. It just means you know a process. So the certainty that you guys have
This is
about
what
the
so
origin
Morpheus,
of things is pretty. I mean, to me, it's not. You guys aren't being skeptical at all.
No, Morpheus. Hold on, stop. Sorry. Hey, so like neither I nor Facade said anything about a level of certainty about the origins of the universe. What you said was, if you look at it, you think the universe indicates a designer, and we were questioning that. We didn't say anything about our view of the origin of the universe.
I don't think you can rule it out. No.
Okay,
don't
so
think you can.
but I don't see why.
Okay, but I
ruling it in.
can't
You-
also rule out wizards that shit bricks that compile the universe.
We don't have wizards that ship bricks. We have.
How do you know that?
intelligently
How do
designed-
you know that?
We have intelligently designed. Things
How do you
in the
know that?
universe. We
How
have
do you know
intelligently
that?
designed things in the universe.
How do you know that? How do you
Because I
know
can
that
point to
wizards
them.
that don't shit out universes exist?
A computer is intelligently designed.
That
Okay,
doesn't change my question, buddy.
unicorn
Answer
that
the
exists.
question. How do
I'm
you know
answering
that
your question.
wizards that shit universes don't exist?
There's no proof of that.
There's no proof
can't
of
rule it
wizards
out.
that
No,
shit
there's
out
not
universes.
proof of it.
But you can't rule it
We're
out.
talking about rule it out. You can't rule it out.
I gave you proof. I said there's intelligently designed things in the universe. And there's
Okay, but
naturally
if
occurring
wizards
things.
are shitting out universes, they can shit out universes that haven't designed things.
Hold on, guys. So what I'm saying is like, so the existence of intelligently designed and naturally occurring things is not evidence that the universe was intelligently designed.
There's evidence of two things that exist in the universe: intelligently designed things and things that are occurring naturally. Now, we can redefine those things if you want to, but the point I'm trying to make is to point towards an intelligently designed option is just logical because there's intelligently designed things in the universe. It's not like the example you're giving, Fantastic Facade, is you're bringing up something that we don't have any proof of at all.
No.
But there's no proof of my wizards that shit out universes, right? But you can't rule it out, which is all you're saying about intelligent design in the universe, is that we can't rule it out.
Right. Because you're kind of putting the onus on us to rule it out. Do you want to
I'm saying that to assert I am wrong or to assert that you're wrong is wrong.
So we're not asserting you're wrong. What I'm saying
we're asking for
I don't see any evidence that the universe.
I just told you there's tons of things that are designed in the universe.
Sure, but that's not evidence.
But that's not evidence that the universe is designed.
But it's not. I'm just pulling that out of my ass though. You see what I'm saying? Like that's not just coming from nowhere. If there weren't intelligent designed things in the universe, then I wouldn't be able to point towards them.
You're making a non sequitur, man. You're jumping from point A to point B, and there's no bridge between the two. What you're saying is kind of like saying, like, well, we looked into a forest and we saw a bunch of trees, and also we saw a brand new Corvette convertible. They must have all naturally been there.
I can give you an example of how it makes 100% sense for anyone listening. We know there's living organisms on the planet Earth, so we look for organisms that are living outside of our Earth and our solar system. It's the same argument. We know there's intelligently designed things, so we look. It's the exact same thing.
How is that an argument for design, though?
I just said there's designed things, and so we look for designed things. There's organisms that live, so we look for organisms that live. This is not.
Yeah, but those are
those
are completely unique statements of fact. Like they're not related to one another.
And then looking for other places where that
trees exist on planet Earth. Dolphins exist on planet Earth. Therefore, dolphins must exist in trees.
No, I never said that. I said organisms.
But what you're doing is the same thing. You're equating two things that aren't related.
No, they're 100% related.
They're not related in any way, shape, or form, buddy.
Why do we have $1 billion budget looking for organisms on other planets? Then, if it's
we don't actually. The government defunded NASA. But even if we did, that doesn't take away
whatever
anything,
the number is. It doesn't matter. The point is that.
But by the way, it doesn't matter. You could have $1 trillion looking for it. It doesn't change the fact.
The fact is that we do this all the time. You can say it's stupid and wrong.
I'm not saying it's stupid or wrong. I'm saying there's no good evidence of intelligent design for the universe. Things that exist within our universe.
Design things intelligently? Have we never designed anything intelligently?
I'm saying for the universe itself, buddy.
So
not
there's evidence. Are we in the universe?
Morpheus, stop. I'm not talking about... Stop! Shut up for a second. Please. I said... For things within the universe, there's obviously a case for design. Humans design things a lot. Sure. I'm not debating that with you at all. Where the buck stops is when you're talking about the universe itself, which is everything there is.
Including us.
I'm not talking... Yes, including us.
That's why I was arguing.
There's no good indicator that the universe itself is designed, because you'd have to compare and contrast other universes in which some are designed and some come by random chance, right? That would be how you determine that. Since you don't have a reliable method of doing that, and we're not even aware that other universes definitely exist.
Oh, I'm not talking about other universes, but I'm not trying to be correct here. All I'm saying is that to me, it seems reasonable that if we know that intelligence exists, intelligently designed things exist in the universe, right? We have that here on our planet. That it's not unreasonable to think that maybe we weren't the first, or that there was others, and that maybe that we are some kind of domesticated byproduct. It's not unreasonable to draw those conclusions.
Yeah,
You know
what I'm
not
saying,
I'm correct, but
I'm
just
not saying that you're undoubtedly wrong. I'm asking for what evidence you would use to point to that, right?
Us.
And if there,
that's the evidence.
but
Okay.
you can't point to us, a very, very small sliver of a component of the universe, versus the entirety of the universe, and say someone obviously designed that.
Well, I don't know if it's obvious, but it's definitely. And I would say it's a reasonable
how
option.
could it even be evidence? Like it'd be like simply, we know that beavers design things.
Therefore,
the universe was designed by.
So
a beaver.
I'll use the argument because all I'm doing is in part I'm just regurgitating an argument that I started this whole thing out with, which is by people way smarter than me. So if it's unreasonable, then that's a pretty large claim.
You're making
it's as simple as
false
this. We have
analogies
evidence.
here, buddy.
Hold up real quick.
You're apples to oranges.
Smarter than you.
Okay, I know you don't care about smart professors. That's fine. But the point is,
that's not what I said.
I get it.
This is why
it's a claim. You don't appeal to authority. I get your point.
I'm done with this argument. You guys can continue.
But the point is that they used evidence of us creating simulations. They used that evidence on planet Earth in our universe. We create simulations of other worlds, whatever you want to call it, simulated universes, if you will. And so if intelligence is creating simulations already, then you just jump to the logical conclusion, well, it may be the case that this is a simulation because those are more common than original ones.
No, that sounds like a jump. Like I'm playing a video game and I say this is a simulation. This video game is a simulation. Therefore, I might also be in a simulation too. Like that's just an unwarranted assumption. Because I don't see any evidence for that. So
we create simulations. We create intelligently designed simulations.
So Morpheus. All right.
So you can't hypothesize that there could be any other intelligent beings that could
there could be really wizards that shit out universes. You can't rule it out
because we do it here. So
you can't rule it out.
That doesn't mean that the laws of physics could have come from some other being.
It doesn't necessitate it, but it's still a possibility.
I don't see how it follows. I don't see the connection.
Well, I didn't necessarily want to make that connection. I was saying that that's an option. I mean, if you wanted to go really deep down the rabbit hole, you could make that. I'm not really making that claim. I'm making the claim that given the naturally occurring structure of this universe, that somehow natural intelligence emerged, and then from that simulated natural occurrences emerged, and that's a possibility, and we're part of that. So it's an option, but to Fantastic Facade's point, I wouldn't go as far as he did with it in terms of unicorns and wizards and things like that, but I would say there's still some evidence here. I mean, we exist in our world, we see it.
I see the exact amount of evidence for what Facade said is what you're saying.
By the way, there's equal evidence because the universe exists, right?
But you couldn't rule it out. And matter of fact, wizards do exist. We know they exist in simulations. We might be in a simulation, right? So there could be
the universe exists, right? And if wizards shit out universes, there you go.
But what?
That's exactly the same amount of evidence.
Well, we live in a physical world with physical evidence.
Well, no, we could live in a simulated world. We could live in a simulated world with simulated evidence. Shitted out by a wizard. Because you can't rule that out.
Well, you can only point to what exists in your reality, right?
Okay, so in our reality, can you point to anything that indicates that it created the universe?
No, you can't point to anything.
Okay,
then that's the end of the conversation, right? That's it. That's the end.
You can't point to unicorns because there's no unicorns. You can point to a machine. You can point to a computer.
Sure.
You can point to a simulation. If you guys can't make the distinction between a unicorn and a computer,
I want to challenge you on something. I want to challenge you on that because
I'm gonna go with wizards.
You're saying we can't appeal to things that we don't know to exist in our universe. That's why you couldn't appeal to wizards and unicorns, etc. Right?
Scientists use
But
physical
no, Morpheus.
phenomena.
I'm asking the
Yeah.
specific point for a reason, right? So we can't appeal to wizards and unicorns because we don't know them to exist in our.
We don't have evidence of them existing.
Okay. Do you have any evidence of anything that exists that is capable of creating the laws of physics?
We have, yes, yeah. There's computer programs that can essentially.
No. Computer programs
they can create a simulated
the laws of physics. That's not what I asked.
They can simulate.
Do you know of anything, any intelligent mind that is capable of creating a law of physics?
Not creating one, but simulating one. It's two different things.
All right, so I have a pen right now, and you probably can't see it because of the background, but I drop it and it fell. Right. Do you know of any being that can create that type of law?
Yeah, human beings can create that simulation.
They can create no, not simulate it. I want to create gravity.
I'm only making the claim for simulation. No one's made the claim otherwise. I wouldn't make the claim otherwise. I'm only using proof and facts.
You were saying, Morpheus, you were saying
I'm data driven. I look at the data that exists.
There's no data that exists that shows that
there's simulations, 100%. We do it all the time. And we do it for some of our most complex machines, and it works.
But Morpheus, there are simulations of wizards. There are simulations of unicorns.
Yeah, so, but it's not.
I don't see why you couldn't appeal to them.
Don't worry about what the simulation is producing. Just worry about it's a simulation. So like if the simulations are creating, dragons or something like that.
Yeah, well, we can't worry about that. You said don't worry about it.
No one's pointing towards dragons.
Well,
they're pointing towards.
So we're not pointing towards the laws of physics then, or either.
Well, in some cases you have to, because the simulations are literally simulating the laws of physics. But that's how they.
But I'm saying in my simulation there's a wizard, so it's literally simulating a wizard.
So then you can appeal to a wizard.
You can appeal to a simulated wizard. Sure.
Okay, so a simulated wizard that shits universes created our universe.
But we're not talking about wizards. We're talking about whether this is a real or simulated universe.
No. What we're trying to do is draw a comparison from what he said to what you're saying, because for right now, as far as I can tell, Fasad's ridiculous example has as much evidence as what you're saying.
That there's simulations, I agree with him.
Okay, so, all right. No, not that there's simulation.
That's my argument.
No, not
is that there's.
All right, so to be specific. All right, so Fasad asked you, why can't we say that a
wizards
wizard created the universe?
Before. I'll tell you, it's a matter of sequence. Wizards don't come before simulations. They're a byproduct of it. So no one's arguing for.
But if our universe is a simulation, then the universe is a byproduct of a simulation. So there's no difference.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's no difference.
The laws of physics don't come before after simulation.
The laws of physics do come before simulation.
They do. Okay, so all right, cool.
But a wizard doesn't come before simulation.
Okay, cool. So now we said the laws of physics come before the simulation, therefore they can't be in the simulation. Now, I'm asking you, do you know of anything that is capable of creating the laws of physics? Not simulating them, creating them.
No.
Okay, so then how in the name of common sense can you say that the laws of physics came about?
You're just making my argument for me. You just said it's rare. Hold up. You just said it's rare that the laws of physics would come out and would be curated. They would have to arise naturally. They're not being simulated. Is your point? It's rare, and that's the whole point behind this argument.
I'm not saying it's rare. What I'm saying is there's no evidence that they were designed.
Here's what we know right now. This is what we know.
But I didn't say anything about it being rare. We were talking about whether it was designed.
Here's what you know, and everyone knows, and we believe, right? A universe naturally occurred. That's our universe. And then, as a byproduct of that, intelligent beings created simulations. That's a sequence of events that happen. Now, what I'm saying is that, is it more plausible that we're the first one, or that we're a byproduct of the simulation in the future? That's all I'm saying. I don't know. It seems interesting, but it is.
Okay, but that's different, and it negates the fact that the whole universe is simulated.
Let's give him the last word on that.
I 100%. I'm not saying that. I'm saying again, it's a possibility, and I know you guys don't. I understand your point behind possibilities. Everything's possible, of course. But what I was saying earlier was that you could take two roads. One, like you want to go all the way to the whole universe. I think it's more plausible that it's not the whole universe. I think the universe is emerging or rare. Intelligence emerging is rare. That it can still be emerged naturally, but that just like we do with our own planet, intelligence tends to help other intelligent things along. That's evidence on our planet. We've been doing it since we had the ability to domesticate animals and modify organisms. I don't think it's. I think it's a legitimate thing to think through, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, let's give him the last word on that because he said I was getting ready to go, and I'm having to get ready to go as well.
No, that was it.
Okay.
I just think it's a very interesting thought experiment. I don't think it's something that could be completely ruled out, and because of our own, and maybe it's wrong to judge other things because of what we do, but we definitely assist intelligent things. We definitely design intelligent things. And if there was, just imagine a civilization like human beings, like on Earth. Imagine if that civilization had arrived, 100 billion years before us, and they had all that time to create more and more complex systems, simulations, and blah blah blah. I mean, it could be. I mean, I've even heard. All right, this is the last thing. I've even heard statistics that it's possible that there's, duplicates of our own species based off of probabilities. But by the way, I just think it's an interesting thought experiment, and I'm not 100% convinced of it. But yeah.
All right. Well, Morpheus, appreciate you coming on the show again, as always. Funny and lively discussion. And guys, also one announcement. We got Wes from West Virginia coming back on in a few weeks. So if you like the last episode, Satan said sad and delicious, we're going to be doing a round 2 of that. So keep an eye out on our channel to see when it's coming back up. We're also hoping to get Pastor Joe Ainsley back on as well. So all right, guys, thanks for tuning in. See y'all later.